Welcome to Above the Garage.
Hi, friends. Welcome to our discussion of episode 5 of Presumed Innocent. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Helen.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Kate. This episode is entitled Pregame and was directed by Greg Utanis, cinematography by Doug Emmett again. All-star team. As usual, it picks up right where it left off, as he's beating the shit out of Ratzer outside his door, and Raymond's still repeatedly asking what's going on over the phone, like he's got time to answer him. Barbara and Jaden are, of course, terrified as he slams the door shut and locks it. God, this episode is so dark. Trying to take notes outside on my covered patio, it was impossible to see. Darker and darker, like we said. Barbara's having her excessively reasonably voiced discussion with Rusty afterwards, pointing out the obvious stupidity of going to Ratzer's house and creating the possibility of exactly what's just happened, risking his family, but never raising her voice.
It doesn't help Rusty's case at all if he lashes out with violence against someone, even though, I realized Brian was beating on the door and it was scary. He didn't even give him a chance to do anything like, I don't know, push his way into there was nothing he was doing other than banging on the door.
That struck me later because when he, later in the episode, when he's like, yeah, you're going to call the cops? I'll go there with you. And I'm like, wait, you don't have a leg to stand on, Rusty. All he did was knock on your door and then you beat the shit out of him. I don't understand why you're so confident here.
Right.
So yeah, I had the same reaction.
Yeah, if he'd let Brian at least take the first swing or something
right.
So that he was defending himself and his family.
Yeah.
But he's been physical with the ME before, so he has a short fuse. I think there's just too much going on for him to keep it all under wraps. Like, he explodes so quickly.
Yeah, he has a very well-established pattern of violence at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. It's just like boiling over.
I definitely agree that this had more to do, his lashing out with violence was more than just Brian Ratzer. It wasn't just all directed at him. It's everything, like Helen just said. It's like everything just boiling up, and just this like gave him an excuse to get out a lot of his aggressions that he's probably been pushing down.
Right. Because in the last episode, we saw him like thinking of Carolyn as he's beating shit out of, I don't know. Who knows everything that's going into that. I am getting like really tired of Barbara's excessive calmness about everything and the way that she talks to him. I respected it early on, and now it's just driving me like crazy.
Yeah, at some point it's like, what is the line that's going to push her to lash out herself? Because she's been well justified to be angry this whole time. Right. And I'm sure she's angry, but she just, like you said, she stays so calm about it.
Right. I don't know. It's strange to me. Anyway, Tommy's looking at photos of a pantsless Carolyn when Eugenia knocks on his office. She wants to know why she's being called first or close to first. And they fight again over his accusation that there's something between Rusty and her. She refuses to answer if she's kissed him, instead opting for the go fuck yourself option. So do you guys think she's kissed Rusty?
No.
No.
I don't know what to think about Eugenia yet.
Yeah, I think maybe she has.
She's been really interesting to me ever since the first episode, because I noticed her. I'd recognized her as an actress I've seen before, and I noticed how they kind of held her character back. Like, they showed just a shot of her in the first episode and the second episode, I think, where she's just kind of in a conference room and she looks upset, of course, appropriately because of Carolyn, but she doesn't have any dialogue. We don't know her name. We don't know anything about her, and we don't see her, as far as I remember, interacting with anybody else. So there's not much going on with her until I think the fourth episode, when Tommy finally pulls her in. We learn her name and his suspicions that she has feelings for Rusty. Yeah, and I don't know what to think about that, because I think her character is interesting. Like, they've been holding her back for a reason, and I feel like she could sort of be like I don't know, something that becomes more important later on, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I really like her and her attitude. I like this character.
I think Tommy's actually just projecting.
Yeah.
And being jealous, like jealous little fuck.
Right.
He definitely is, yeah.
That, apparently Rusty can pull all the women and he can't.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Maybe now with his title, but I think he's telling a story that's not actually.
And Tommy also has the sense, and I think it's probably accurate, that people just don't like him.
Right.
Kind of just based on his attitude or just on sight, like, people just kind of reject him. And I think he just gets that sense, whether he feels like it's based on anything real or not. So I think the fact that Rusty does seem to have this magnetism about him that is appealing to other people, whether or not that's warranted, because, he could be a murderer. He's definitely an adulterer. So,
Yeah.
Well, it's clear that Tommy was obviously obsessed with Caroline. I mean, it's pretty obvious now.
Mhm.
And like when he was looking at the photos, like he was zooming in like on her legs, and he was like just being a weirdo.
Not creepy at all.
And then like he shuts the computer down really quick when she walks in.
Yeah.
He's startled. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he knows he's doing something fucking weird.
yeah.
So
At the end of the conversation, Tommy straight up threatens to fire her if she doesn't perform as he wants, which is not cool, Garden State dude. Not cool at all.
yeah, I liked when she clapped back to him and just saying, if professional objectivity is really concerned, perhaps you should recuse yourself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I think she definitely knows more, and she knows like the dynamics behind the scenes that we never saw, especially with Tommy's insecurity, and I think and maybe even him like flirting with Carolyn, trying to get her attention. And
Right.
yeah, it seems like she knows more.
Right. I was thinking of it as related to just Rusty, but you're right. Like, it's all very incestual. He's involved.
Yeah.
Conflict of interest with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then Raymond's expelling an aggressive amount of gas through multiple orifices, but not enough, it seems, as his head then explodes. Were you guys fairly shocked at that moment?
Yeah.
I literally did what Raymond did in that scene, and I literally almost shat myself. Like that scared the absolute crap out of me. I literally jumped.
Right. You never see that coming. It's not that kind of show, so.
No.
I thought it was a real moment. I thought it was mildly humorous because of all of the gas and everything.
Right.
I was like, this is weird. Like, why are we seeing him burp and fart? This is really strange.
Yeah.
But it made me laugh. Like a lot. Like I was just
It
like,
did. No, it was funny. And then it looked like he was having a heart attack
Yeah.
because he started to like grab his arm, and he was in distress, but then something totally different happened that I definitely wasn't expecting at all.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was going to the heart attack route, but
Yeah.
no. In reality, he wakes up from that nightmare, understandably bothered. Lowe took some courses in dream interpretation, it seems, and this dream means Rusty did it.
I wanted to comment on Elizabeth Marvel just because I love her as an actress, but I was wondering if you guys have ever watched the show on Hulu called Hellstrom.
I haven't.
It's a Marvel offshoot TV show. It was very short-lived. It was only one season, but she's on this show and she plays this woman possessed by this demonic entity, and she is absolutely terrifying. I highly recommend just like pulling up the first episode just to see her in this role, because it is just astounding. And then seeing her contrasting that in this or Homeland or whatever else, she blows my mind. I think she's phenomenal. So.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
I really like the scenes that she's in.
Me too. The cast is so good.
I like too that she's not afraid to just say, yeah, I think he did it.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just real blunt about it. Even to his face, she'd probably do it. I mean, I remember when he first went over there and she would just looked at him like,
Ignored
you're,
him.
you're
Yeah.
just a piece of shit.
We're not talking,
Right.
Rusty.
We are not friends anymore.
That seems so funny because Jake did it so well. Like he was like happy to see her, and then he realizes that she's not, and his face was just like, oh, okay.
Oh man.
You're in the perma dog house, dude. You're over.
Yeah, I really like their marriage. That's probably my favorite
Yeah.
relationship in the show.
Yeah, it's very cute. But she's right. She was right in what she said, you know. He
Right.
doesn't have to really prove that it wasn't necessarily him. There just has to be some kind of reasonable doubt.
That it wasn't him, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucked up in a lot of ways.
It is fucked up because I guess there's one tiny little shred of doubt, even though there's like 90%, you know, yes, they've done it.
Well, I have to support America in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worse to incarcerate an innocent person.
Oh, 100%.
So that's why we do that. But it's interesting though, in civil cases, it's not the same. But it's a lower burden of proof if it's a civil, like if it's just going after money, which is why I think, OJ had to pay. Well, he didn't, but he was supposed to pay Nicole's family like a lot because he was guilty in the civil case, because it's not the same reasonable doubt situation as the criminal case. Not that there was reasonable doubt in the criminal case, but anyway,
Well, in cases like this, in this TV show with Rusty, are interesting to me because he could be innocent, but look incredibly guilty just because of the circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the case, probably.
He can be a liar and not be a murderer. So it's like,
Right.
that's what makes it compelling and interesting. And you can read almost each scene both ways, guilty, innocent, and it all can make sense. So it's really
Right.
fascinating the way that they're writing this.
Yeah. Maybe at the end they can just charge it. Like if he's not the murderer, they can just charge him with like being a fuckwit.
Right. Only that was a crime, which it should
Guilty.
be.
Guilty of that for sure.
Yeah, that'll be the charge.
Yeah, he seems like guilty in a lot of ways, and a lot of not crimes, but just behavioral problems, but not guilty of a crime. So that's why he looks guilty, because he's been lying and cheating and yeah.
He jumps from breakfast with them to running with Rusty, imagining everything from kissing Carolyn to the hogtie to punching Ratzer, after which he's in his car outside Ratzer's house just asking for more drama. He waits till Laura's left the house and then he heads inside the fence. A dog starts going crazy after he tries to go around back and you see a pair of legs coming. That shot just shows you that he's dragging his leg, presumably from the attack. And when he confronts Rusty, you can see his face is all fucked up as well. But Rusty begs Ratzer to just give him a minute before the scene ends. And again, like, I thought it was really odd when he suggested calling the police and Rusty's all like, yeah, right. Like, it's just so stupid.
Why do in shows people go off in a car and then come back 2 minutes later? It happens all the time.
Did he take his wife? I wasn't sure about that. Maybe it was somebody else.
I thought he was calling to his wife to hurry up.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought he was in the truck with her and they both left. And then Rusty went to break in, scope the place, and then he came back. So then when he came around, I was wondering if she left and he stayed. And I'm not sure.
I mean, couldn't it have been another male in the car yelling to hurry up?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he left and came back. That'd be too weird. It's literally 60 seconds later.
Right.
It actually happens a lot though in shows.
Very short errands that they're running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just come back because they forgot something.
Yeah.
Like a phone, wallet, key, something like that.
To discover their wife having an affair with their brother.
Right.
Exactly. That's daytime TV movie.
That's actually Love Actually. Actually, I think that happens.
Yeah. I just thought of Love Actually.
Oh no, that's awful.
No, I
So
love that
sad.
movie and it's so sad. So many sad things.
There are so many sad parts.
Yeah, why do I love it? Back in the office, Raymond hits him with the extremely accurate accusation that Rusty is becoming more and more of a sociopathic nutjob. He calls Maya in since Rusty won't listen to Raymond. Maybe he'll listen to a third party. She hears him out and patronizes him. Yeah, sure, fine, but it's not our case. They do a good job of painting Rusty like the nut job, but ever since Violet noticed that the dates of Bunny and Carolyn's murders were the same, I am of the mind that he's rightfully furious that nobody's following this chain of evidence, like, at all.
That was an incredible observation, because what are the odds of that just being random? That had to have been deliberate.
Right. No, that's a strong enough piece of evidence to compel you to follow up.
If you have her tied up the same as Bunny and the dates are the same,
On the same date. Yeah.
that can't be a coincidence.
Well, they haven't discovered that on the show yet, so maybe it's coming.
But how? I mean, that seems like that would be so basic.
Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, it's got to be clear in the file. Plus, they worked on the case. They would know that date, like just burned into their brain.
Yeah.
And for her to die on the same exact date, for that not to have come up in 5 episodes, how?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Surely Rusty would mention it, right? Because he was the
Yeah.
one working with it on the case. So
Yeah,
Yes.
not Raymond. Yeah.
Yeah. He keeps pointing out how they're tied up the same, but he hasn't pointed out the date.
although to be honest, he seemed a bit preoccupied with Carolyn, so maybe he doesn't remember the details.
I don't know.
I still think that would come up by now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Also, we as viewers are probably used to serial killers, dates, anniversaries,
Mhm.
same kind of strangulation, same kind of murder weapon, MOs. It's like
Yeah.
we're so used to this that maybe it's us who's expecting that to be obvious.
But wouldn't the prosecuting attorney for the case that he worked on also be paying attention to those dates, especially when he's trying to deflect blame away from himself?
Yeah, they should be used to it.
Yeah, it's Rusty who should clock on that. Yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
as Kimberly said, his mind is in all different places.
Mm.
I found it interesting too that Maya was like, well, it wasn't exactly the same. And I'm like,
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
it's so similar. Like, it's so similar. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, like, to, every single.
It was pretty
Mhm.
much exactly the same. Like, that is absurd.
It's enough exactly the same.
Yeah, no, that annoyed me.
Yeah, but she's probably just not wanting to encourage Rusty too much. So like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
keep both feet on the ground. Like, yeah, they
Right.
were tied up similarly, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't solve your case, Rusty, in a way, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what they said, right?
I gotta side with Rusty here, though. Even though he's crazy, like, he's right that nobody is following up on it. He knows the prosecutors aren't gonna.
Yeah.
The police don't exist in this show. So,
It's at least a very clear lead that should be exhausted before
yeah.
eliminating it.
Because, like, what happened to Rico? She's like his investigator, and she seemed willing to help him.
Mhm.
Anyway, back home, Jaden's losing faith even after seeing her father being so violent, but the ever loyal Barbara assures her he's not a murderer, as if she has any idea at this point, as if anyone does. But I love his daughter's honesty, telling him he does seem like he's jumped the tracks. Even his 17-year-old daughter has to admit to herself that he is seeming insane lately, but she's still accepting cuddles, so that's nice for him.
Mm. I was just trying to think of like the differences between his relationship with his daughter and his son. I think we discussed that last episode.
A little, yeah.
I was still thinking back to when Carl, apologized to Rusty and they had a nice hug and all that. But I also remember last episode when he wouldn't go in and like apologize.
Yeah. And he also lost his shit when Kyle had like any sort of, I
Yeah.
can't remember what he said. I don't think he said, did you do it? But something to that effect.
Like a plea deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, there you go. And it's the same thing like she's saying right now, I could see you doing it now that I've seen your violent side. And he's not like flipping the fuck out on her
Yeah.
the way that he did on Kyle.
I put a note that he defends his actions to her, and I would think that enough time has passed from him beating up rats or for him to get a clearer head on that, and in retrospect maybe say what he should have done.
I went overboard, right?
Instead of defending, completely going apeshit on this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely understand how scared the family probably was with the man pounding on the door like that. That's not okay either. And he did threaten his family. He did say something like, you come after my family, I come after your family. But still, it's verbal and it's not physical. And Rusty just immediately attacks physically.
Yeah, he escalated it so much.
So Rusty doesn't backtrack on any of it. He seems like he's still defending what he did.
Right. I don't think he's very apologetic about anything, right? Has he regretted anything? Has he shown regret for like any of his actions?
No, like he might admit to a truth. I think it goes back to what Raymond said about admitting guilt, that he doesn't, he might feel shame, but he doesn't feel guilt.
Yeah, so he doesn't apologize. Next scene, Tommy's sleeping in the office, daydreaming of Carolyn. I'm annoyed because the scene essentially blows my theory it could be him, because they're not going to probably show us that in episode 5 if it is him. But it was indeed him that was probably who Carolyn was talking to her son Michael about, the guy scaring her in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the flashback tells us she doesn't like him. I guess it doesn't necessarily show that she's scared of him, but she specifically asked not to work with him.
She does look pretty uncomfortable though.
Yeah.
Oh
She
yeah,
does.
for sure. No, she's trying to be polite while also clearly showing that he's making her uncomfortable. And he is,
Yeah.
like, I was so grossed out by this because it just seemed so juvenile of Tommy to be like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you want to work with me? Why don't you like me? Why don't
Yeah.
you? It's just so unprofessional. And to put her on the spot like that,
Right.
it's hard to respond to a
Yeah.
question like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's making it very professional, all of the reasons, and it's not personal, but he just seems so whiny. And that it does become very clear it's personal for him, like he has personal feelings for her.
Mhm.
I'm not sure it eliminates him for me though as a possible suspect, because
Yeah. Not yet.
For me neither.
I do think he's very jealous of Rusty, and the fact that I know Rusty obviously was in love with her. Was she in love with him? I think that's sort of a question for me
It doesn't seem like it from,
because of the way she treated him.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Tommy didn't know about the affair. He knew about Carolyn preferring to.
It makes me wonder though if he did. He said he didn't, but I wonder if he knew more than he let on.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's not, no, you're right. That hasn't been shown that he knew.
Yeah, he probably got a vibe, right? Because I know she says that, she wanted to work, if she was going to work second, I think it's second chair, I think she said.
Mm.
It would be to Rusty, but also not just because of that. Also, he might have watched her, he seems creepy like that. Like
Yeah.
he could have got sensitive vibe between like Rusty and Carolyn, like in the office, like she was friendly to him and not friendly to him. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's what happens when you're obsessed with someone like that, is you notice everything, even if
yeah,
others don't realize it. If he was that observant of her and that aware of her, he probably picked up on what was going on, I would think.
yeah,
But then again, it goes to show that by confronting her one-on-one, like he's not even interested in how she feels,
no,
because if there's a woman not wanting to work with me.
And she certainly doesn't want you to confront.
yeah,
Yeah, but this just goes to show that he's not interested in what she thinks. It's just all about his feelings.
yeah.
Yep.
This episode, you really see him like unraveling, like he's really unhinged. Seriously.
There are layers of things that must have been happening over the years in the office.
Yeah, might have been Nico last episode or the episode before when they were in the bar and he said those things to him about
narcissistic.
Yeah, like we hadn't quite seen that yet, but now it's kind of like all coming out and we're seeing it.
He's a duplex of being narcissistic and wanting to prove something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also an interesting thing that Nico had said in that discussion that is getting more and more relevant, I think, because apparently the first thing Tommy said after being named deputy district attorney, he said, well, now I'm going to get all the girls.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh.
It was apparently, in his mind, it was Rusty before.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what gets you all the girls, is being the DA.
Not just because you're Jake Gyllenhaal.
Not just because you're a handsome man who's very charismatic and women like you.
It's all it takes. Yeah.
I feel like their dynamic, Tommy and Nico, is really interesting to me because we see so many scenes of just the two of them. So I always kind of see that as honest moments because they're not showing off for anybody else. It's not for anybody else's benefit, but the two of them. And there's so many times when Nico seems truly alarmed by something Tommy says or by Tommy's behavior or the way that Tommy is approaching the case, like in a way that I guess I wasn't expecting, because Nico kind of puts off this very smarmy, like you expect him to be corrupt. And I'm not saying that there isn't any of that going on. There could be, but it feels like I see him trying to rein Tommy in.
Yeah.
Like we gotta, this has to be about evidence. We have to find the evidence.
Yeah.
Those moments have surprised me.
Yeah, I also recalibrated a little after episode 5, the relationship between Nico and Tommy.
Yeah. The next scene, Nico's working late too. The Liam situation has come across his radar today, it seems, in one way or another, but Tommy insists there's nothing there. Liam Reynolds is in prison. And Nico, how did you guys feel about that? Nico's motivation here, like you were saying, is pure. You think that Nico is worried about Tommy not doing his job well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Nico is actually really when he's saying focus on the evidence, let the evidence lead you, Tommy, he's actually saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what Tommy is taking from it is make sure that the evidence is solid.
Find the right evidence. Yeah.
Find the right evidence or make the right evidence.
Yeah.
To build your story.
But I don't think Nico is very much interested in, getting rid of Rusty.
Yeah.
No.
Tommy is.
Nico wants the case to be correct because Nico is correct, because he sees himself like he earned this position that he's in right now, and he is like a fair judge or whatever. And it's his first case as DA.
Yeah. But earlier on, I think I was wondering if he was telling him to build, chase the evidence that would make Rusty.
I wondered about that too.
Same. But this scene makes it feel a little
bit more on the up and up. Like Nico actually is interested in getting to the truth and using the evidence to back up their case or their case.
Yeah.
And he is worried that Tommy is letting his own personal feelings against Rusty.
Right. Which he clearly is. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like Tommy is out to get Rusty.
Yeah. That's his first goal.
And Nico's trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm glad he's distanced himself there.
I love the way this scene was shot as well. It was very moody vibes.
Mm.
The show does the moody vibes very, very well.
Very well.
Yeah, it does.
I really, even though it was really creepy, I enjoyed the shot of Tommy dreaming about Carolyn and then waking up and then being like almost in a way ecstatic, but in a very like slimy, creepy way.
Mm.
Also, how the camera was like above him, it really delivered what the scene was about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost too obvious as a suspect because he does come off that way.
Yeah, you're right. It's because also what Kate said earlier, whereas like we're only on episode 5, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like last episode was when they really started amping up like, oh, it could be Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's just so hard to tell because like they're obviously just trying to throw you into 10 different angles about, you know, who it could be. So it's just like,
But it's still possible. They can go into someone else in episode 6 and then into someone else in episode 7 and then have it come back. So maybe they're just sprinkling it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think they're navigating this in a really clever way.
Yes.
Because you're constantly questioning and guessing. You might be 100% certain at some point, and then something else will happen that'll throw you off of.
I haven't been 100% sure one single time.
No, not 100%.
If you had to guess who it was right now to win $1,000 or something,
Ooh.
what do you guess?
Based on what we have now?
I'm not paying you $1,000 if you're right, by the way.
Well, shit.
Based on what you have right now.
If what we have right this second, I'd say Tommy. But ultimately, I think we said last episode, I still think it's going to be Rusty.
Yeah.
Like last episode, I thought it's going to be Rusty, but after this episode,
More Tommy.
like Tommy is benefiting from this on all fronts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He has Rusty's job. He doesn't have to be jealous anymore because, you know, the woman he liked is dead. He's benefiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a smart motherfucker, so
Yeah.
he could have planned it.
It's got to be anyone from that.
Literally anyone. Literally anyone.
Anyone who had access to the Bunny Davis file who would have known about the crime scene pictures and who tied it up, which is a lot. It's almost the whole cast because even the families could have had access to those pictures.
Yeah, they'd be at the home.
Yep.
So it doesn't narrow it down at all.
Who are you guessing? Did you guess someone?
I haven't guessed yet. I was a little bit too influenced by Tommy's suspicion of Eugenia in the last episode about her possible feelings for Jake, even though I agree they haven't shown that. But they haven't shown much of her at all, which is why she's very interesting to me. I just wondered if she was somehow a confidant. She does say that she knew about the relationship. And if she was a confidant somehow and knew that Carolyn was messing around with Rusty, that kind of spun my mind around and like, could this have been a jealous rage thing? But I don't know. I have to know more about her.
So who's your answer?
I would say right now, Tommy, probably because I do suspect him too.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
There's a lot of people that are sort of like spinning around in my head.
It could be multiple people.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ratzer, the original.
Oh, that's a good guess too, because
It's funny to me that like nobody ever really
I never think of
him.
He's like so far low on my list.
Yeah.
He's still like hard for me to think of.
Which is hilarious.
And I don't know why. He's not credible.
Right.
He denied it, but that's not necessarily the truth. So I don't know why I don't suspect him more.
Another person that I find intriguing that we haven't seen much of, and I feel like maybe we will, is her ex-husband. Like they're looking at each other in court in a weird way.
That's true.
But
yeah.
I don't think he really did it. So
he would have been upset. I mean, he was upset about Michael being brought in for questioning and stuff. And
right. If he did it, I would say it had something to do with the son.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's like literally the whole cast could.
Right.
And it doesn't help. I don't really suspect Barbara, but it doesn't help that I've seen Ruth Vega in other roles where she absolutely could have done this.
Murderous. Yeah.
Yes. This role, not so much. She doesn't to me act like a woman who committed a horrible murder.
No.
And is now trying
She has no rage. Like she doesn't even have a capacity for rage, it seems. So I can't see that, but
she doesn't. But I'm wondering if her calm demeanor is like
a really good cover up of
it could be like, yeah, but she also doesn't give me the psychopathic, sociopathic vibes either. So I don't think, because if in order to really and truly cover up something that horrible, you kind of have to be a bit of a psychopath to
Yeah.
pull that off.
Mhm.
And I don't really think she is. So I don't really suspect her here.
She doesn't seem jealous either. Speaking of her, Barbara's back at her boyfriend's bar, admonishing herself for being human while she chugs a martini, finally finds the courage, liquid or other, to call the number on the coaster he gave her. Even after she calls him, though, she tries to back out, but he gets her with a literary quote, asks her who said, "We regret the ones we don't make." Okay, question for you guys. Do you think that's true? Do you think more of your regrets are things you did do or didn't do?
Didn't do.
I think you regret the things that you didn't do.
Yeah, really? I'm definitely a did do. I guess I do too many things.
Oh, I have a lot of those, but
Yeah, I wanted to say this list is so long. That's probably
I should have assigned you this early in the week.
The things you wanted to do and didn't do, maybe.
yeah.
Interesting.
I think ultimately when you're like, old and whatever, I think you'd regret more what you didn't do unless you've like murdered someone and you regret it, you know what I
Right.
mean? Unless it's something like really big.
Yeah, there are horrible things you could have done that you
Yeah.
totally should regret. But a lot of times, like if you do something and either you fail or get in trouble or whatever, sometimes there's at least you feel like you're living your life a little bit, or at least you're taking chances. But if you don't take the chance, or if you don't try or something like that, I think those are the things you regret.
Interesting. I feel the opposite. Not that I have like massive regrets either, but it's more things I did do, I think. All right, so the quote works, and next thing we see is Barbara being bathed in colors and lights and art, eventually seeing Clifton admiring her beauty like we are. So this is his art, I take it. And she says that his art makes her feel safe, which she takes jokingly as an insult. He holds back, telling her he wants her to make the first move, since she's technically married and all that. And obviously she's quite hesitant, but she tells him she wants it, and he's in with a kiss.
Oh man, I'm just gonna go off on this whole scene because the cinematography, the lighting, the directing,
I know.
the whole thing. Her like,
I was thinking of you.
she looked so
so
beautiful
pretty.
with those
Mhm.
lights behind her, and like when she had her hand against the wall, and
Just
just
angelic.
the whole art that was obviously created for the show. To be Hot Lemon Cutter's job, obviously.
and Hot Lemon Cutter is
Himself,
also
yeah.
Yes.
what he's wearing is also like on point.
Yes.
Beautiful.
The whole scene is just like chef's kiss.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just shout out to Greg Utanis and Doug Emmett. And
I know.
I'm
it's so
sorry
beautiful.
that I don't know who did the lighting on this show, but it was all just thank you. Thank you, bow down.
Agreed. Well, and it was so dreamlike too, because I almost was questioning the reality of it at first, because it was so, I was like, where is she? I didn't realize this was his place at first, or that he was even present. So it was just, it had this hypnotic feel to it. It was just beautiful, like you said.
Right, and they keep teasing us with her and Clifton too, and taking it away. Like, so.
Did you guys think that they had sex before we find out they didn't? Or did you think it was just the kiss?
I don't know.
Good question, because I didn't really don't think I really thought about it, actually.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think I thought about it before. But I would have thought it was more than just a kiss.
I was just happy that she kissed him.
Yes. But yeah, I was just thinking of you, Kimberly, through that whole scene and all the pretty colors.
Beautiful scene.
You know what Dave said as we watched? He goes, "Hey, that's a screenshot."
Yeah,
Like,
there's
I was
one.
like-
There's one. There's another.
I was like, absolutely, that's going on the collage.
That's cute that he gets you.
Yeah, I wonder if his art is also connected to the I Ching that he had a tattoo of, like
Right.
projection art, but also all the patterns, everything being random.
It's literally projection art. It's art that he's projecting.
Literally, yes. Also, yeah.
No, but that's certainly why yeah.
Also, just a little note on the I Ching tattoo as well. Greg, the director, actually posted that Dr. Wu from LA actually designed that for the show. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah,
Wow.
I saw that post and it's really cool. Good shout out, Kimberly.
I always love finding out who like made all the stuff on the show.
Yeah, me too. It's so interesting.
Even just the projection art that they used. Hopefully we get to know who did that. Could have just been someone like the set design or something like that, or
Right.
a specific artist.
It's a specific artist, yeah.
Meanwhile, at the office, Ratzer's being questioned by Maya with Rusty and Raymond in attendance. I don't know why they would ever let Rusty in that room. Maybe let him see the recording, but almost every single character has independently established that he is at least acting like a psychopath lately. crazy to let him in that room. Anyway, Ratzer admits to seeing prostitutes, blames it on his wife, of course, but he adamantly claims to have had nothing to do with the fucked up murders of any of them. They seem to believe him. Yes? Was that your impression?
Yeah, I think Maya believes him that he didn't do
Yeah.
it.
They were looking at Rusty too, I think, to see how he was taking it.
Yeah.
I didn't even get the impression Rusty was thinking he was lying, but I don't know. We'll find out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that shot on Rusty, like this long take on his face, because to me it looked like Rusty was realizing that this guy that sits opposite him, admitting to having seen prostitutes and cheating on his wife, because after having 4 kids, his wife was not really interested in having sex. I don't know if it wasn't a moment for Rusty to realize, in a way, he's been doing exactly the same thing,
Right.
but telling
He's
himself,
no better than this guy.
like, I am not this guy, but in a way I am, because I did exactly the same. The details are just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't use sex workers, but he still had an affair. And in some way, I mean, the last episode, he was putting responsibility on his wife. So
the reason was similar, like we're drifted apart. Well, my wife didn't want to have, no, it was almost like euphemism. We drifted apart for, sleeping with someone.
Right. Do you think Rusty takes that as a mirror reflecting back at him? And does he see that those flaws in himself, or is he totally oblivious to it?
I'm not sure. I mean, me as a viewer saw this scene as definitely comparing those two, but if Rusty himself, I feel like there was a spark of recognition, like, yeah, I've been doing the same thing and I'm not any better.
I feel like even if he did, in my take on him, even if he did for like a second, that he would be able to mentally dismiss it and rationalize.
Sure.
Oh, definitely.
Like, oh no, it's not the same.
Right.
I was in love with her. I was in love, like somehow that's going to justify it. I was in love with her.
Outside the courthouse, Tommy is preening for the press, delighted when they ask him what punishment he thinks Rusty deserves, takes off his glasses and proceeds to grandstand widely. Taking on Wall Street, pharmaceutical companies, all of them can be avenged by taking Rusty down. Nico was not a fan of Tommy's soapbox, and Tommy's not a fan of Nico's condescension. I'm not a fan of Tommy's brown suit. I think I just don't like brown suits, though. I'll take it personally. But back to the plot. Tommy accuses Nico of making his position harder by condescending to him in public and not giving him the respect he deserves, or needs anyway, to win the case. The last statement was a bit much. They need to know that something is so because Tommy Molto says it's so. In character, though, just a bit much.
Yeah. My note says Nico looks scared. I think that's part of what I was thinking about when I was saying earlier that Tommy will say something and Nico will look alarmed at what Tommy just said.
Well, also, if Tommy fucks his case up, then obviously it also
Nico's
fucks
fucked.
with his. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he seems to be almost regretting his decision.
Yeah.
As we go along, we see that.
Well, and doesn't he defend it? I don't know if it was this episode earlier where Tommy is being self-deprecating about himself, saying that people don't like him, or Nico makes a comment to him like, I wouldn't have put you on this case if I didn't really believe that you could do it, or something.
It was this scene.
Oh, now I remember that this is where Tommy felt like he had to go on that positive offense, pointing out how no banks went to prison after the crash and the pharmaceutical company got away with opioid crisis, like trying to point himself as the hero. Like he's trying to say, I'm going to be tough and I'm going to, get the bad guys and stuff, because he feels like people perceive him as the bad guy and people perceive him as being, they don't trust him. He's not trustworthy. Now I'm remembering that's when Nico says, I wouldn't have put you on this if I didn't believe you could do it. Yeah. However, his behavior outside the courtroom is making Nico question it a little.
I like that he also blames everyone else, that they're the reason that people don't like him, like Raymond, Rusty, and also he even said Nico. So it's clearly everyone else's fault.
Right.
That, he's unlikable.
Isn't that too like Rusty? Does Rusty also blame other people other than himself? I guess he's taking some responsibility, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I had one note about this scene that reminded me of a scene in episode 1 when it's Rusty on the steps outside of the courtroom or the DA office and having like a rant about Nico. And it felt like it's now Tommy, seeing his opportunity to give a speech, and he has the press listening, and he's the one getting attention and people are listening, and this gets broadcasted. So he is like exactly in the position Rusty had been a couple of weeks before.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, that's interesting.
So like he's exactly in his shoes, and you can see he's like fucking enjoying himself.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a stage.
Yeah, he's getting off on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next scene, Rusty's showering. I'm not sure what the point of this 10-second scene was, actually. Just a gift to the audience, I guess.
The only thing I could think of was that it really focused on his wedding ring.
Yeah. And he's stressed. He puts his hand on his face, but we knew that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just because of what Barbara did in the scene that we saw before.
Right.
But
You don't think it was just a thank you gift to all of us for making it this far?
I mean,
Multiple reasons.
we could have seen him swimming again. That would have been nicer than running on the fucking treadmill.
They stopped with the swimming. Yeah, they switched to treadmill.
Come on.
Yeah, but
Did he eat a cake that week or something? He ate some fucking donuts.
no,
and
it
they
was
couldn't put him on.
Barbara's suggestion that he runs off his frustration apparently, or his
Uh-huh.
anger and
Is swimming
and
not
rage.
enough
Yeah.
for getting through his frustration?
Yeah, but I've noticed that this theme of water comes
Right, for
again
sure.
and again. At the beginning, it was swimming, then it was shower. I
Okay,
remember,
Yeah,
Barbara
yeah.
and Rusty also had like a deep conversation in the bathroom, and the
Mhm.
bathroom is blue with like deep blue tiles, so it feels
Right.
like
And
they're
outside the
in
pool,
the pool.
there was another conversation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of water and blue on
Yeah.
repeat.
Yes, this show is quite blue. And a lot of rain.
And the either flashback or vision of Rusty assaulting Carolyn in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was sort of a vague
Interesting.
image to me, but still. And there was a shot too of the two of them looking at each other and they're both wet, like they'd just gotten out of the pool or something.
Rusty's sweaty a lot as well. Like you can see
Mhm.
the droplets on his face.
Barbara is taking out her stress on the eggs downstairs. Rusty's banned murder trials from breakfast, and he's highly suspicious of how nice Barbara looks. I don't even know if he's that suspicious, but it's notable. It's such an absurd scene, though, watching his family be so warm and joking about his murder trial on the television. I don't know if this is how it would play out in anyone's home, but it's interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Jaden's juggling normal teenager crises like zits on top of very advanced adult problems like murder. And everyone's agreeing that this is a lovely morning.
I thought it also seemed a little like it shifted in a positive way that I didn't know. Did that feel earned? Like they'd earned that moment of
I feel like they've always like had this closeness of like cuddling and warmth, and it's pretty
Mhm.
consistent.
but that's their
Yeah.
normal.
But I think it's like been
Yeah.
consistent, and it hasn't gone away the way that I would expect it to in this wake of the adultery without the
Mhm.
murder, even the adultery. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's been a change when you say is
Right,
it
that's
earned?
true.
But I find it odd. Like I don't find it accurate to how I think real life would be.
In the circumstance, like right before the trial and
Right. I mean, it's right before the trial too. We didn't
Yeah.
realize that at the time, but then you see, and I don't find it to be realistic myself.
I mean, it was cute the way the phone call between Rusty and his daughter, and I didn't get it at first that they were talking to each other, and then they were like having this cutesy moment or whatever. But it sort of seems strange to me just because there's
Yeah.
been so much tension, and they're not over everything. So it's
It's weird how he can turn it all off in that situation too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just feels strange to me. I don't know how to explain it very well. But
Yeah.
Rusty goes back inside after he sees Kyle's bike in the trash. Kyle weakly explains it got Rusty, and the parents look at each other like, oh shit. And Rusty says okay in the best way. I liked that little acting moment from Jake. He collects the bike, presumably for proper bottom of the river kind of disposal. Incidentally, it was Kyle watching the murder trial news, which now seems relevant earlier. And one last note, it's sweet that Kyle was trying to recycle the bike. That made me laugh. Worrying about the environment still overpowered his worrying about living out his life in jail.
it wasn't in the trash; it was in the recycle bin. I noticed that too.
Recycle. Pretty funny. You guys have, what do you think it means? You think he's admitting to...
Yeah, that was a very, very
Yeah.
suspicious situation with the
Yeah.
bike and the trash. I think maybe Kyle realized that he might get involved in a way because he's on the videos, in the videos. So I think it was even a smarter way to get rid of the bike, just to recycle it and let it go like the usual way you would do with stuff you don't need, than to, stow it
Scrub
away
it
and
clean.
or just like Rusty did, like stow it away and then throw it into the river
Yeah.
or somewhere. So that's more suspicious than just, recycling it.
Right. I don't think making it disappear is a very good idea, honestly.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing.
The only thing, you wipe it down for sure. And then I guess the only other thing that could really get you is like the tire treads, maybe. Change the tires. They wouldn't even know. I don't know. I just like if they come looking for the bike and it's been thrown away, then it looks very suspicious.
Yeah, I feel like that does make
Yeah.
them look suspicious.
Plus, I feel sure that whatever he did do with the bike is going to eventually be like come out in court on some camera, you know? We'll see. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I do wonder if Rusty forgets that he has the bike in the trunk.
right. Something else I think is going to come of that.
Like he forgets to get rid of it.
I definitely
So
agree
they-
that if they're getting rid of it, they should just leave it in the recycle bin, because I agree with you, Helen. It's like getting rid of it in any other way looks worse
Right.
than just doing something that could be normal.
Right. And what are you going to say when they're like, what did you do with it?
Yeah.
There's no answer. I guess you could say it was stolen.
Yeah.
That's probably what they will say. Just dumb. But anyway, Barbara actually is in therapy. I had figured she was going on a date when he was asking like what she was dressed up for. But it turns out her date that we just saw was like a week ago. So that was confusing. She even lied to her therapist afterwards. The therapist paints this more as a romance than Barbara initially described it, and she admits it was deeply romantic. Barbara also admits she's felt her daughter's judgment, and that's colored her own feelings. She knew Jaden would be proud of her when she was walking up those stairs, presumably to make out with Clifton, but not to fuck him, though she could have. Should she be proud of that? She asks the therapist.
She was amazing. That scene, she was amazing in that scene. I loved it.
I do feel like it's a comparison between Rusty and Barbara, that Rusty feels shame, and what Raymond says, it's based on his ego. So it's very personal for him. And Barbara openly says she's not ashamed, but she feels judged. So she's like the polar opposite of Rusty. Like she's not doing what society would expect her to do, aka leave him, go have an affair, think of herself. And, you know, Rusty feels ashamed for what society would not support doing, cheating on your wife. So they're like polar opposites. And it really like kind of hurt me for her that she just admits like, yeah, I know I'm being judged for because this is what people expect me to do. Leave him and be pissed about that. But like, I don't want to do that because I love him. It's like, fuck, because it's like, she didn't do anything wrong, and then she gets like hit over the head with those information that keeps, you know, it's like punches being delivered one after the other, and she doesn't want it. She just wants to have a family and a husband, and she never asked for it. So it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, and what she says about it, like you said, it's polar opposite, because Rusty focuses on the shame, and she was feeling guilty because of how her daughter, like she felt judged by her daughter. And so she's worried about how this affects her family, how this affects her children, and how her behavior does.
But also in a way that she should be, just to give a good example to Jaden, she should behave like society would expect her to behave, aka leave the cheating husband.
Right.
So she feels that, well, it's how I took it, is that Barbara feels that Jaden is judging her for non-leaving.
For not leaving,
father,
right.
For not being a good husband.
Right.
And now on the rooftop, Rusty and Raymond are arguing once again about Liam Reynolds. Raymond does not want to make their case about alternatives. Rusty does. Raymond asks if Barbara thinks he's guilty and tells Rusty that Lorraine does. Despite Rusty insisting that Barbara doesn't think he did it, he doesn't want her on the stand. He says she can't establish an alibi, but Raymond argues that she can testify to his state of mind later that night. Rusty's still shaking his head. Do you think there's more to that night at home, or what did you take away from that conversation?
It's interesting that, because I mean, he as himself, as a lawyer, would know, right, that if you have a testimony from your partner, significant other that you've seen, you know, after the murder might have happened, then, you know, obviously their demeanor is going to be different, surely, unless you're an absolute sociopath who has no feelings.
Right. Yeah, he knows how useful his wife would be. A wife would be in that situation.
Yeah.
Like you said, because of his job. And yeah, he doesn't want to use her for some reason.
Right. It's interesting because like Raymond's pointing out to him, she's stood by him through all of it. You know, despite everything, she's still staying with him because she apparently loves him still.
Well, she thinks he's a good guy, obviously. So it would be useful
to
have someone like that.
I guess one thought I had was, if he thought that putting her on the stand would put her through more that he doesn't want to put her through. But
He just seems more selfish than
Mm,
that. But
I don't know.
that had
Like,
occurred to me too.
Yeah.
that's why I kind
Yeah.
of hemmed it, because I don't know if I don't really think that's his motivation for it. I think maybe there is something that he's afraid she would reveal if she's put on the stand.
Mm-hmm.
No, it just gives also the prosecution the opportunity to ask her any kind of question.
Yeah.
So that
That's
can
true.
potentially hurt Rusty in the long
Mhm.
run.
So they can call her, right, regardless of if Raymond wants to call her.
No, they can't.
They can't.
I forgot. You can't testify against your spouse if you don't want to.
Yes, that's right. She can act as a character witness for the defense, I think, but they can't put her
Right.
on the stand to against him.
Testify against him. Right.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. However, if the defense calls her, can't they cross?
I think they can.
Yeah, so that would still give them an opportunity.
Yeah.
But she can plead the fifth, right? Isn't it pleading the fifth for your spouse as well? I mean, it looks guilty, but
Maybe.
I don't know why she would. She doesn't know anything.
Mm.
But yeah,
It's definitely a good look that all of the family are in the court, though.
right.
You'd think that sometimes if your husband was up for murder, maybe he wouldn't show up. I don't know.
Sometimes, no, I wouldn't be there.
Especially because he had an affair and it's very public. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
But is the affair public? I don't think it is public.
Well, if it's
Is-
not,
I
it
thought
will
it
be
was.
soon.
Is it not? It might not be, because there was a news clip, maybe not this episode, but the last one, where they were saying they're keeping everything locked down. They're not revealing anything. So maybe the public doesn't know.
And they call Carolyn a colleague. So I don't think
Right.
the affair is part of what's been communicated on the news.
I guess it will be, though, right? Like you said,
It will be,
yeah,
definitely.
will be.
Right. So when she loses her job at the gallery, that's just because of the murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the attention, I guess, it's giving.
Right. Unwanted attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I would have a very hard time believing that Tommy would not have leaked that information that they had an affair to build up public
Mhm.
hostility towards him, you know?
It's a good point.
So this is the night before the trial. Everyone's seeming sleepless in bed. Kyle's once again watching the news about the trial. Raymond's memorizing the post-mortem photos. And Barbara and Rusty are just laying there, speechless and sleepless in bed. We don't know if sleep ever came for any of them before they're escorted to the courthouse by the police in the morning when we next see them. They're holding hands in the car like the close family unit they are. Miraculously, it's still raining in Chicago. I think the first time I noticed it not raining was when Rusty was moving the bike from the trash into his car.
It seems to be raining mostly when it's like quite intense
Yeah.
moments in
Mm.
the show. And I really
Ugh.
loved the way they did this scene, actually,
This
where
scene
they
is gorgeous. I loved it so
Yeah.
much.
where they just flash to kind of most
The
of them
music,
and-
like the beauty,
Yeah.
that violin music
Uh-huh.
in the background. So
Yeah.
I loved it so much. And there was no dialogue. It was all just
Uh-huh.
the music and the images of getting them to the courthouse.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I thought about Kate, because there was like a sea of umbrellas outside the courthouse. Call back to Shining Girls as they were going up, and it is pouring rain, like intensely pouring rain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The moment I loved the most was at the very end of the montage when the judge sits at her, what's it called?
Bench. I think they're behind the bench, right?
Bench. Yeah, she sits at the bench, and at the same moment she puts up her hands, the music stops, and it just reminded me
Yeah.
of like a conductor.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it so
Yeah.
much.
It was very good.
The whole family's seated like we discussed. And Rusty was like holding the elevator for them on the way up, trying to smile. I don't know. Them being them. The family's seated, and then the jury, and then the judge invites Tommy to present his opening remarks. Tommy tries to ingratiate himself with the jury straight off the bat with his fancy name, but I'm from Chicago like you, so just call me Tommy. That might actually work on me, because I love my vet because she goes by Shelley instead of Dr. So-and-so. So maybe not a terrible strategy. He also personalizes himself with the victim. It shouldn't matter that I knew her, that I admired her, that I miss her, but he won't pretend that it doesn't. He's supposed to be tough, but he'll probably show his feelings. And he makes sure his voice breaks a little. Then he admits to the jury they have a hard task. Memories are shaky, evidence is unspeakably gruesome. And then he shows the most gruesome photo I think we've seen so far of her bloody and beaten, dead face, almost looking in the camera. And several members of the jury are visibly affected. And then he switches the photo straight from that to a photo of her son, Michael, looking as happy and innocent as possible. I thought that was a very smart thing to do, go from the one to the other. And he ends it with, Carolyn spent her life in this pursuit of the hope of justice. and he implores them for her to be faithful to the truth. That's all she would have asked. This is the first episode where there isn't necessarily any shocking new plot twist at the end, just an excellent opening statement and Rusty's reaction. Fuck.
I thought that was great.
Yeah. Perfect punctuation at the end. I thought it was really good that we see the jury's reaction to the photo first before we see the photo. Just their reaction at how gruesome it is, and then we see what they see. And like you said, we hadn't seen a picture that was quite, all of them have been horrific, but like that one in particular, like you said, it looked like she was staring into the camera almost. It was very haunting. Did you feel like his opening statement packed that punch?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I personally thought he got too emotional. I think you could tell that it was more personal for him. I feel like he got just a bit too worked up. But
Yeah.
I don't know, it could work in his favor because, you know, he's like sympathetic and, you know,
It's a gamble.
they knew her, blah, 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 you know. But yeah, and you could tell that there was more to it than just being kind of like a colleague for me anyway, because we know, like, we know him, but the jury doesn't know him. So it could work.
That's why he shouldn't be prosecutor. It's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Like about someone you knew, right?
Right.
But it was also a shot of Nico where he looked a little bit of apprehensive of Tommy being so direct and emotional. He was like almost, shut the fuck up, Tommy. He's like, no, we don't go that way.
Yeah.
And I remember talking with Violet when we watched it, or after we watched it, is that Tommy was insistent on finding the truth because that's always what Carolyn has been driven by, finding the truth. When we know she hid the evidence about...
Hid the truth, right. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, so that was definitely something that Violet caught, and we talked about it, so...
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, that's a really good point.
Very good point. I actually don't think that they should have the son in court. Like, it makes sense for him to be there for the opening statement. Definitely. That's like a statement of their own. But I would be nervous about his reaction to, I assume at some point the prosecutor is going to pull up this photo of Kyle at the scene. Although, maybe not. Maybe that detracts from Rusty. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they go that way at all.
Well, since Raymond made the comment in the last episode that the picture of Kyle on his bike was a few weeks prior, do we have a picture of Kyle on his bike the night of?
No.
Because isn't that what would make him look guilty?
Yeah, that's true.
But I think him getting rid of the bike would imply that there's something we don't know. And presumably he was there that night, I think.
Yeah. I think the prosecution would want to avoid putting someone else on the scene at the day.
Anybody else there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they want to. Well, if Tommy wants to, can. Rusty.
Right.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Raymond versus like Tommy and Nico.
Yeah.
I love Bill Camp so much. I've just become like a massive fan from this show.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great.
I'm gonna have to go and watch some more things that he's in, but I think it's gonna be funny just because like they hate each other so much. So it's gonna be really good.
It's also the material, and he's being given just amazing lines to deliver, and he's just I think he's a perfect actor for the part, and he's just nailing it, but like the material is so solid too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I did enjoy him, getting coffee and belching and I was like, can this guy be more relatable?
Real, yeah.
I mean, before it was a dream, I didn't question any of that at all.
I didn't either. I was like, yeah, that's Raymond. That's Raymond.
It was funny, but I was like, okay.
I just kind of thought it was a bit weird for the show. I was just like, this is a little strange, but it made me laugh. Like,
it was a drastic tonal change.
Yeah.
I cracked up until I just shat myself from the explosion.
I did crack up as well.
Jesus. I'm so bad with those things though. Like, I'm so jumpy at anything like on the TV.
Jump scares. Yeah. All right. I guess that's a wrap on our discussion of episode 5. Come back next week for episode 6 discussion. Thanks for listening.
Bye.